Hey, everybody, it's time for another edition of Inside Lion Athletics. When everybody's going fast, you got to zoom, right? Here we are. Got Jaret von Rosenberg with us to start. Coach, fresh off of the game last night. It's been kind of an interesting weekend watching your team from Saturday against New Orleans to the game last night against Southeastern. You had your one squad played two very different games.
Yeah, really disappointing from our approach and how we just approached Saturday. That's not taking anything away from New Orleans, but I felt like we didn't compete. I think our guys, I think we just thought we were going to show up and win, and that's not how it works. That's not how college basketball works. The other team is preparing. The other team has players. The other team's trying to win. Um, so much better in our approach yesterday. And obviously, as we just talked about, uh, you know, we played some. If you throw out New Orleans, we played some good basketball since returning from Christmas break. Uh, but we've got to, you know, teams are making more plays than us late in games, and we've got to be the team that gets the stop when we need to stop, and we got to have some guys step up and make plays late in the game to come out with some of these wins.
Coach, are there any examples that kind of color that in for everybody? I know things were looking pretty good down at the Valley, and then at the end, the Dorado or the Vaqueros came back and got it.
Well, yeah, like Chris misses a free throw and then gets the offensive rebound, um, and doesn't get a shot off or get fouled again. They just take it away from him, but he had the ball with two hands. And that's not blaming on, but those type of plays. Last night we get a stop. We're up three. We get a stop. Um, the first shot that the Hines that shot it got his own miss and put it back and got an and one, tied the game. You know, those little plays, those 50-50 plays, um, you know, when things aren't going well, those seem to not be going in your favor. And the only way to change it is to somebody to go make plays. And like a good example is Scooter against Abilene Christian. Uh,
Mhm.
got to the free throw line 3 possessions in a row, uh, and made I think 4 or 6 or 5 or 6. So you continue to score. Um, and then last night we get to the free throw line, and then we miss free throw, miss the front end of two 1-on-1s, and now the lead, or it's a tie game or down two, and now they go up six because not because we didn't have an opportunity to tie the game, we missed free throws. So just you know the whole part of the game matters, but in that last, you've heard me say this a million times, like all we're trying to do, we're about to go on the road here 2 weekends in a row, or 2 games in a row. All we're trying to do is be in the game in the last 4 minutes, and then hopefully we can make a few more plays in them. All right, so get a timely steal, convert our free throws when we get to the free throw line, take a 4 point lead late in the game. That's where, um, the next step is. You're playing good basketball now. Guys got to, you know, not only make the play, they got to want to make the plays. They can't play timid. We got to play to win. We're not playing to survive.
Coach, one of the things I noticed in last night's game over the previous couple, even when things were looking good down at RGV, the guys were communicating more with each other. They were boosting each other up a little bit more on the floor. And those don't get you buckets or wins, but it's good to see those guys like, it's going to take all five of us out here at the same time working together. And you saw some of that.
Yeah, I mean it's amazing if you. I give our guys a lot of credit. Like this has been a crappy year by every standard that there is. But you turn on the film. If the record's not on the film, you don't see guys pouting. You see guys cheering each other on. Our bench has been great. And that takes a lot. I mean, that's a big deal, because it could easily go the other way, which, it being negative and that's not productive. Everyone knows it. It's just human nature when things aren't going your way to sometimes act like that. So I do give our guys a lot of credit and our staff a lot of credit for staying the course, showing up every day, you know, through this, and hopefully they get rewarded. by us continuing to play better basketball and win some games and try to stack some wins.
All right, Coach. So we're done with New Orleans and Southeastern for at home. Now you go, it's Lamar on Saturday afternoon in Beaumont, and then you go to the Sawmill in Nacogdoches to take on SFA. Um, New Orleans got that win at Lamar. How much of that tape has been helpful?
Uh, it's good. I think, and I'm hoping the same way. Like, uh, we've got to really worry about us. And Lamar's a tough, Lamar just went and won at Nichols, which is a tough place to win. All these games are winnable for everyone in our league. They really are. I think, for us leading, 25 minutes last night at RGV led for 30 minutes, like you're in these games and obviously our record says we're a terrible team, but I mean, we're just not getting it done the way we need to. We have good players, just like the teams we're playing against, and um, so hopefully we can, like I said, continue to be aggressive later in the games because it's been working when we're assertive on both ends of the floor. It's been good for us here in the last couple games. So hopefully we can continue that, take advantage of, we made Southeastern totally switch how they run offense and defense by our guys executing early in that game. So, we're doing some good things. We got to build on them. Got to do them better, and then we need our guys to be aggressive and play to win, not play to survive.
Coach, when you go out on the road and you're headed south, you don't expect that to be the place where there's all the snow left on the ground. Uh, Usually it's when we're headed west or north from Lone Star days.
Yeah, absolutely. My brother actually sent me, lives down in Brenham. He actually sent me a picture. They got some snow yesterday, so I don't know how much of that will be on the ground. I know there's weather all over the country, so we'll handle it and we'll get down there, and that's why we play an indoor sport.
Indeed. All right, man. Hey, thanks so much for your time today. I know y'all got a lot to do before heading south. We'll see you down in Beaumont on Saturday.
Sounds great. Go
All right.
Lions.
Jaret von Rosenberg, head coach of Lion basketball. Folks, we'll be back with more Inside Lion Athletics after this. Hey, everybody, welcome back to some more Inside Lion Athletics. Charlie Chitwood here. We've already had Jaret von Rosenberg join us to talk men's hoops. Now we get to talk about track and field on Zoom. It's supposed to go fast. Everybody goes fast on the internet, right? Georgie Pincock, how was Norman, Oklahoma?
Another good week for us. Just again, like I keep saying, put people in competitive environments and see how they do.
Indoors, and you were telling me beforehand there were so many different levels of collegiate competition there, from NAIA all the way up to the Power Fours, and then your Lions right in the middle of them, grabbing 8 medals. Was that the proper count?
Yeah,
And
I
two
think that's
more
the
school
right number.
records.
Yep. Again, just to see people in competitive environments, trying to be the best they can in the moment, I think just ultimately leads to those little victories along the way, event wins, school records. Hopefully, we're lining ourselves up for a little bit more later in the year.
Who surprised you? Did anybody come up with just a shockingly good performance?
I don't want to say shockingly good, but a couple really great performances. Again, have to give shout outs to our high jumper, Veronica Kramarenko. PR last week, came back, cleared 182, took a couple attempts at 183, which, if you convert to feet, is over 6 feet. And again, just to see that bar and kind of get those attempts is a good thing. Uh, Again, on the long jump runway, Justin Vincent, really starting to put things together well. Out over 7 meters 50 in long jump, so for a big PR school record there. And then sprinters continuing just kind of push things forward that way. So no major surprises, but just people kind of taking that next step forward that they need to.
The first couple of meets, it's been individual reports. Do they run relays at these as well?
Yeah,
Or
so we
are
have the opportunity to
the
run
teams with the
relay.
batons going to get a workout?
Yep. And that's kind of how we do things early in the year is we kind of put a couple teams out on the team and a couple teams out on the track and just see how they do. You know, you're always switching someone from A team to B team, C to B, you know, and just kind of moving those parts, trying to find the best fit for the end of the year.
How important is it? I mean, the stick is everything in a relay, but getting those guys and those women where they're so smooth on the handoff, it's just so critical. How much time do y'all spend on that?
Probably not enough. Probably not enough. You know, I'm a relay guy at heart. It's my favorite event. It's the last thing on the track. So even if the track meet goes bad, you can have a good race, and that's what you're going to remember. But you know, just finding the right combo of people, and the right belief in the team that sometimes we don't have to spend as much time on handoffs as some other places. Kind of believe in that chemistry between people.
Yeah, very good. All right, so what's up next? You've been to A&M's indoor facility. You've been to Oklahoma's. Is Texas Tech up next?
Yep. So end of the month, we're going to split between Texas Tech and Houston. So that gives us a down week to train, uh, try to get something done in this cold weather. But you know, it's kind of what we need. Just get people on the road, get them in that groove, back off, get into training, and then we'll hit them again end of the month and into February.
Georgie, I know that they're looking at plans. How can we possibly have an indoor facility in Commerce, maybe? When you look at these four venues that you're running in to start the year, you taking any extra notes for, what really seems to work best in one place versus another?
Yeah, I've got plans to a couple different places, to a couple different indoors centers, and how those work and what they can host and what they can and can't do. So I'm ready when we're ready.
Sounds like fun stuff. All right, so who's going to Houston and who's going to Lubbock? Do you have a
Yes, starting to take form a little bit. Our distance group, all our cross country guys, they're going to open up their season down at Houston.
mhm.
So that'll be a big part of that travel group. Probably most of our throwers will go to Houston as well. Some great opportunities down there, and then a small handful of sprinters and some relays will likely head up to Lubbock, try to take advantage of the elevation, and some of the conversions that we get for time there.
Right. How much longer does indoor go? We can't believe that we're, like a week away from the end of January already.
Yeah, so we'll compete at our indoor Southland Conference Championship that first weekend in March, the Sunday, Monday. So I think that's March 2nd and 3rd.
That'll be a busy weekend for a lot of folks.
Exactly.
All right, good deal. All right, Georgie, anything else on the squads you want to talk about? What anybody that we missed from their accolades of winning medals?
No, just a lot of freshmen. You know, that there's some morning sections, kind of they call them the open sections that stepped up and won their open section. And just again, I think that's kind of the seed that can keep growing is those early victories in a career.
Ah, boy, no kidding. There's nothing better than a freshman with a gold medal.
Exactly.
All right. Georgie Pincock, thanks so much for joining us today. Y'all stay warm. It's a great time of year for indoor track.
All right. Thanks,
All
Charlie.
right, man. That's it. All right, folks, stick around. We'll be back with more Inside Lion Athletics after this. Hey, everybody, welcome back. It's time for a little bit more of Inside Lion Athletics. Had a couple of folks on already. Coach Jaret von Rosenberg talk about men's basketball. We've talked track on Zoom. Isn't that perfect? Now we got Valerie King talk about women's basketball. It's just kind of tough all over there too. But coach, two more games this week, and the goal's always to go 1-0, right?
Yeah, that's right, Charlie. We got back in the gym yesterday, had a really good practice prepping for SFA and Lamar, kind of doing a mixture of both things, to get us ready for the week. So it was good to be back in the gym, watch some film, and worked a little bit of stuff on our own as well.
Coach, is it a little bit easier for everybody to get what they're seeing on film this time of year? I would think you would hope so.
Yeah, I mean, we continue to watch film, on our past games, obviously also our opponents, but I think sometimes it's kids learn differently. Each kid learns differently. So I think, us showing film and then being able to see, stuff we need to fix, stuff we haven't been doing well. I think it helps them. I know it helps me. Getting our team prepared for games and stuff like that. So I'm always the advocate of watching as much film as you can.
Your squad, you've got youth as well as veteran players, and they probably all learned a little bit different, as you just said. Who's maybe kind of up their film watching game, to get better faster from that?
Yeah, I mean, I think they all do in their own regard. We're able to send it to them, with all the technology we have right now. You're able to send it to them and they can watch it on their phone. We have a group of kids that come in the office and watch it. So it's, they kind of do it how they learn best. And if it's, watching with a teammate, watching with another coach, that's what they do.
Thursday evening coming up, you've got Leonard Bishop and that SFA team down in Nacogdoches. Coach, going to the Sawmill. They started out and just didn't seem to want to lose to anybody, and then they got into conference, and lo and behold, it's a little bit different.
Yeah. SFA is super talented. They're top 3, 4 in the league, I would say, talent wise and, just, who they've beaten and all that. They played Southeast Louisiana super close at home last couple weeks ago, went to Lamar. That was a super close game as well. So, they do different things than a lot of people in our league. So, I think that's why they've been successful, with their fast style of play on offense and then, their matchup zone on defense.
When you're trying to get your team into the right mindset about that, and when you see them playing at a fast pace, that's kind of the pace that you want your squad to go at.
Yeah, I think we've, really been discussing that the past few weeks of obviously we want to play fast and continue to play fast, but making sure our shot selection is where it should be, while we are playing fast. I think you could see that in the Southeast Louisiana game last week where we were playing fast, but we were under control and really being patient on the offensive end. We had like 3 or 4 different opportunities where we had moved the defense a couple times and we're just able to lay it in at that point. Again, we want to continue to play fast, but a little more under control on shot selection for sure.
Alva Hedrick has been doing a pretty good job for you on the glass the last few games. What's been the light switch for her?
I think just practice, and really, hammering in not just to her, but our whole group, hammering in that rebounding is going to get us, on the plus side and help us win some games. So I think that's kind of clicked for them. And like I keep saying, it's something we focus on every day. It's how we start practice every single day now. And they've bought into it. And we have gotten a lot better at defensive rebounding and even offensive rebounding. Has really picked it up as well.
Well, that's great. And you can go to one facet, but the way this season's gone, you get better at one thing and you forget about the other. You got to get them all together.
That's right, Charlie.
How about the guard play? Keisha's been getting a little bit more attention from other teams when she's bringing the ball up. That creates more opportunities for other ball handlers, maybe to, if they're going to put 2 on her, that somebody's open.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we just have to be able to be comfortable, to be able to throw it ahead and, get our offense started that way instead of, Keisha getting it down there to start offense, and I think that obviously the past 2 games, the Southeastern and New Orleans are 2 teams in the league that I don't even know if anybody else really does it. Those 2 really, really get up and put pressure on the point guard. So, we saw that a lot last week. I thought Keisha handled their pressure really well. But, we've got to be able to throw it ahead, like you're saying, and be able to attack and straight into offense at that point.
How about upcoming? I mean, Lamar, we know that they've got a little bit of an inside-outside game, but they're strong inside, and that'll be another battle when you get done with SFA.
Yeah, that's right. Lamar is, just they're a great all around team, offensively, defensively. They press, they take care of the ball. And they've got a big inside presence with Davis. They have, you know, I don't even know. I'd have to look. I'm on
Dean.
SFA right now, but they've got, I would say, 80% of their players back from last year's, that were on the championship team. So that goes a long way. And they're playing really well right now. I think they're on a mission from, kind of what happened last year. So they are, one of the hottest teams in the league, up there with Southeastern. So, we have a tough week ahead of us, but, we'll be prepared and we'll be ready to go.
All right, Coach. Hey, weather got kind of weird to the south of us a little bit. It's pretty chilly wherever you are, but Nacogdoches probably won't have any. But are there any alternate plans for the game at Lamar on Saturday if they're still snowed in?
Has not crossed my mind.
Oh, okay. Very good.
I don't know.
Well, hey, I'm telling you, they woke up in South Louisiana.
I'm hoping it's gone by then. I mean, it's Tuesday, right?
Yeah, that's true. But if it doesn't get above freezing very long, they'll probably be done with it. We won't even have a snowball to throw. All right, Coach. Hey, Thursday up 6:30 in Nacogdoches. We'll be down there with you, and then the Saturday double dip at Lamar. Your team starts the noon. We got a noon game again, or 1 o'clock.
3 o'clock on Saturday.
3 o'clock on Saturday.
Yeah, a little later on Saturday at Lamar.
Awesome. Hey, we'll take those. All right, Coach. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you down there on Thursday.
Thanks, Charlie.
Welcome back, everybody. It's time for a little bit more Inside Line Athletics. We saved the best for last. Jim Curry, athletic director. Yeah, I know.
I don't know all that.
But you haven't lost a game this week, by golly. So
Hey, we all win together. We all lose together. Right?
You are right. And
That's how it works.
If they didn't have one behind you, they're coming with one soon. I just feel it.
Yeah.
Hey,
they're working hard.
I'm glad to know you're kind of back on the campus uniform for these things. That last jacket, and I mean, you didn't have a tie on. I appreciated that a lot. But,
yeah, that was in the car. So I mean, it was. I was bouncing around from meeting to meeting at high level. So yeah, this one's a little more comfortable, particularly on a cold day.
Well, you haven't stopped really those kind of meetings and the aftermath of them from the NCAAs, because there's a lot of people you got to go out and share some of that with in different settings. What's been the aftermath of it since you got back? And
no, I appreciate you asking that. I think the biggest thing is we're still waiting on some clarity from the NCAA on what these new metrics might be for folks who are considering they're in the reclass process, that are trying to evaluate whether or not they can meet these new metrics. That's the one thing. That question, I think, understandably, has kind of been front of mind for some folks. It's certainly front of mind for us. We're interested in knowing it, and I think some people are surprised to learn. Well, can we meet the benchmarks? Well, the reality is I don't know yet.
Right.
So when you say, well, I don't know, like we are waiting for some more specific guidance from the NCAA, and so I think what's important to remember about what we saw in that press release last week is well, there's a number of things to kind of that's buried in that detail. Mm-hmm. One is that we got a little bit of a primer document back in November that kind of outlines some of their thinking surrounding this issue, but they were really clear that was tentative information. And so they walked into the room last week on Wednesday, and there was a very real possibility, and this is actually what happened, that they were going to adjust and modify and tweak some of these parameters for reclass schools that are thinking about trying to truncate the process. And so we are still, so I was in Nashville last week. I knew that the vote went down. They put out the press release. And again, this is one of the frustrations I think anybody in the governance process with the NCAA probably has on campus, is that they'll get ahead of things through a press release, but you know, there's important detail in there, and in particularly this case. So because yeah, they've got benchmarks, but there's also a lot of comparative assessment relative to conference and or national peers on some of these benchmarks, including access to information that we don't have on campus. So we're entirely reliant on folks at the NCAA to help not only identify what those metrics are specifically, but then cut the data for us. Because
what would be an example of that?
So again, I'm gonna be really cautious, but I'll give you a specific example. But again, I don't know if this is one of the metrics.
It could change.
We're waiting. Well, I would say if it's going to change, it has changed, but they haven't communicated what the change has been. But we know that the change is in the room on Wednesday. So I did have a conversation while on site. They were meeting again on Friday afternoon to kind of really package all that for institutions. I've actually had some follow-up conversation with some of our reclass institution peers today to confirm, hey, are you still waiting on information? Yeah, we're still waiting on information. Okay, we're still waiting here too. But for example, you know, if we're going to look at a total expenditure benchmarking, a total expenditure benchmark for athletics, are we doing that relative to conference peers, or are we doing that nationally? Are we backing out certain
very different,
like scholarship? We're a public institution. There are privates involved that don't share any of their information or subject to open records. So it's one of those things where we can't see some of the data that's being used to comparatively assess where we are in that process and also inform decision making. So I think another important piece of this is when we went into this conversation back in the fall, and mind you, I was in a meeting this summer with all of our reclass peers and was asked, hey, is there any conversation about potentially changing the timeline? No, there's no timeline. It's 4 years. It's 4 years. Okay. Well, fast forward to the fall, they've got
6 months later.
Yeah,
not even that.
right. And again, as I've said to our coaches, adaptability required in the current environment for NCAA. But you know, they said, hey, you know, we kind of need to get a sense of where everybody's at. But if you avail yourselves of the new process, then you're going to be held to that, regardless of where you are in the process.
Wow.
And we really don't know if we know that the metrics aren't finalized and they could change, but we can't give you all the detailed data. So that was a hard place to put institutions like us who are in year 3, to maybe year 1, when you're saying, hey, you got a little bit of bird in hand here because we're tracking very well relative to 4 years. Maybe you might want to consider yourself or avail yourself to a new process that we can't tell you have confirmed the guidelines. You can't get access to the data. And oh, by the way, if you do that and you somehow happen to not meet one of the metrics that have yet to be established, well, you're going to be in that process until you do so. So 4 years can become 5, 6, 7, potentially, depending on what that is and what changes are made. So we've been very, very cautious through this process because we are so close to the end. We are making great progress, very methodical, very intentional through the 4 years. And so we're on a great track right now. So if we're going to expedite the process, which we've told them we're interested in, all right?
Right.
I'm very clear about that. When we had this conversation in the fall and they said, well, what are you thinking? And I'm saying, well, based on what you're telling me today, we're interested, but you're also telling me that it might change and we might be stuck with that. So I'm going to give you,
or even penalized, it sounds,
or even penalized potentially. Correct. Exactly. So we're going to be very cautious in terms of how we progress through this. I think with great prudence, right? I mean, we've done so good to date, and we don't want to do anything to jeopardize at the very end when we're so close just because of a midstream change. Now, I think some things that have been confusing this space a little bit is that we have seen some other institutions come out, talk about this in some more formal statements. if you go in and read some of those statements, you will see we are still evaluating the data and getting more information, right? So they're saying a little bit more subtly what I'm saying right now here, a little bit more explicitly, in that before we make a decision and before we commit to a process, let's make sure we have all the information, knowing that, again, we're making great progress and we are on track, full confidence for this 4-year process. And hey, if we can, once we get all the data and the details, if we can get to 3, hey, I mean, that would be great. Let's be honest.
So 2 questions keep wanting to blow up. First off, of our peers in the class, all 5 schools of us that are on our 3rd year right now, what are their feelings? Is everybody on the same page on that?
I would say
I know we got private schools in there, so it's not apples and apples
so
necessarily.
there's a couple privates that have come out and put out a statement. And I think here's the thing. I think everybody wants to do it if they can, right?
Right.
Let's be honest. But I also think too that some have been a little bit more assertive as we're still waiting for information to develop. And there are others like us who are taking a little bit more of a cautious approach. Now, keep in mind too that if you're in year 1, like a Mercyhurst or West Georgia, your evaluation is way different than it would be for someone who's in year 3.
Sure.
Let's say for some reason they look at these metrics that come back and they say, okay, year 1, we're off right now, but we still have the benefit of 2 years to get us there. And we can make midstream adjustments that can keep us on a 3-year track. Well, when you're less than 3 semesters out and you're being asked to make a midstream change and then, not have all the full details of what the criteria is just yet.
That's a hard yes.
It's a hard yes right now. But again, we want to get to yes. Let's be very clear. But we're going to be really careful in terms of how we navigate that space. And mind you, the NCAA said the same thing. Make sure you have a full assessment of what's going on because you don't want to get yourself into a place of unintended consequence either.
Right.
Availing yourself to something that then changes midstream. And now you're completely off track when you've got the finish line in sight.
Golly. Okay, so here's the other question. And all of these ifs and maybes, and I'm almost certain that some of them are going to carry a price tag when they finally tell you what they might be. What kind of money are they talking about to get out a year earlier if you meet the criteria?
Yeah, that's a little bit of where the guessing game is right now. Because I talked about, that comparative benchmarking assessment relative to either national and or conference peers, depending on the metric that they're looking at. And the same is true of academic benchmarking as well. And so, again, we only are privy to so much information. So the reality is we know that our athletics expenditures have increased year over from last year. We just submitted our audited financial statements to the NCAA last week. So we feel good that we've got increases. We know that in the last 2 years, our athletic scholarship expenditure alone has grown by 1.3 million. We know that in the last 2 years that we've added additional academic support staff, additional full-time trainers. I'm interviewing right now for a new equipment manager position that didn't exist. So we know that we've got, significant incremental investment year over, but what we don't know is, well, what did the person in relatively speaking next to us, what did they do year over? Did they go up? Did they go down? Did they stay flat? So this is where there's just a lot of, there's some unknowns, honestly, as we're assessing that. And we'll get the detail. We'll get the information, but we're going to be really just prudent and very cautious as we walk through this to make sure that we make the best decision for our institution. Because again, we're so close to the finish right now.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but do we have in our process, and where we are with the current rules, do we have a place that we're weaker than another or stronger in another that will help, either hinder us or help us across the goal line?
No, I don't think I don't think we have, what we've got is we've got a 4-year plan and we're making great progress along that plan. I've got no doubt in my mind that we
Mm-hmm.
are progressing very neatly along that path that will get us to full membership eligibility after 4 years. And so the question at this point in time is, it should not in anybody's mind be, are we going to be able to be D1 in 4 years or after a 4-year process?
Mm-hmm.
We feel very confident about that right now, given the progress that we're making to date. The only question to date is now with these new objective benchmarks that are in place,
Mm-hmm.
where do we stack up relative to those? And does it make sense for us to avail ourselves of a process that we're still trying to get details on and don't have full information? Or do
Yeah.
we stay a path that we know we are planned for and we are executing really well?
Is there a timeline on when they're going to provide you those details so you can make an informed decision?
I would say not a specific one, but what we do know from a conversation that I've had and has been corroborated by other reclass schools is that there was some additional meetings on Friday afternoon
Mm-hmm.
with relevant staff from the NCAA. They are, I think, understandably as well, from those conversations with them, they are making sure that the information they provide to institutions in this position is accurate, complete, and detailed, because there's some big decisions that are going to get made once that information gets delivered to these institutions about where
Yeah.
to go next. And not just for someone in our boat who's got to decide, okay, you see the finish line and the light at the end of the tunnel, but we may have the most difficult decision to make, honestly, schools that are in year 3.
Okay.
But even for a school that's in year 1, hey, you guys may be, they may find out, hey, we're doing great and we're on a track for 3 years. Or they may look back and say, oh man, we got some work to do on our campus,
Right.
either financially, scholarship, academically. And so they're going to make some adjustments. So, I think for us, we feel good about our, the increase in the total expenditures for athletics year over during the
Mm-hmm.
last few years. We know that our scholarship investment compares very well across the country, and in particular FCS.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we look at academic benchmarks, we know where the trend lines are going there. I mean, our grade report for fall will go out this week. I mean, a 3.14 cumulative GPA across 354 student athletes. I mean, you can't make that number up. It is
If
what
I'd been one of it, you might have needed 357.
I mean, we list all the 3.0 kids and above that are on there, and we're close to, I would say almost 2/3. We're not all the way at 2/3, but almost 2/3 are there. So, we're seeing it. We know what's happening with our trend line on APR. We know what's happening with our trend line on GSR, but at the same time too, we have some lagging data that gets used in some of this comparative assessment. And so this is where we get into the nuance a little bit of this decision-making process for us. So for example, and I shared this with the NCAA when I spoke with them in the fall, we're going to make a decision that applies, that is effective for potentially FY26, so 25-26 school year. And right now, the most current graduation success rate data is reflective of student athletes who initially enrolled full-time in college in 2015, 2016, 2017, and 2018.
Oh, it's just a little different world.
Right. I mean, a little different world. That's pre-COVID. I mean,
Yeah.
like that's before Division I was even a twinkle in our little eyes here. I mean, I mean, that's what's so hard about some of this comparative data and trying to rush to a decision and making sure that we've got a fully informed assessment here, because some of this data is lagging in nature. I mean, I just mentioned, we just submitted our FY24, audit statements to the NCAA last week. Well, the most recent comparative data then would mean FY23. So FY23 making an FY26 decision, your 3-year difference in financials to
Yeah.
the decision. I mean, we've grown immensely in that space in a positive way from the last 3 years. So, again, we talk about inside line athletics, right? We kind of go under the curtain a little bit here we're really getting into the weeds now. But what I hope people know, the big takeaway from all this is that, one, we're trying to make a fully informed assessment.
Mhm.
2, we are tracking very well. We are on track for D1, on the 4-year plan that was developed.
Mhm.
And if we can truncate that, then great. We'll again, we want to be there. Trust me, we want
Sure.
to be there.
It's earlier access to all the benefits.
Everything, all the benefits, right? It changes the entire conversation about where we are, in terms of changing from a provisional status to full membership. And then I think some of the other major takeaways is that, we continue to see increases in academic outcomes. We continue to see increased investment in athletics from
Mhm.
the university, donors, and with that increased expenditures, some of them that I mentioned before that are very much student facing, very much academic focus, very much have a nexus back to health and performance.
Man, that is a lot going on. So I guess the last thing I would ask about reclassification today was, all of this said, we're on a good path. They're offering a shortcut. If we get a roadmap that shows the start and end of that shortcut, and we can choose to take that, or we can choose not to and to stay on the 4-year plan. Right?
Uh,
Is it that simple?
Correct. I mean, we're correct.
I mean, you choose one or the other.
You get to choose your path. Now, I'll
Yeah.
say this: we all want to get there. All right,
Yes,
like,
absolutely.
so I don't
No
want
doubt
anybody to
about
have.
that.
Yeah, I don't want anybody to have any doubt in their mind about where we want to get to on this whole
Mhm.
thing. So, it's just really important that we make a fully informed assessment on it. And again, we don't even have access to the data to assess where we're at. We got an idea, but we know there were tweaks in there. But make no mistake about it, we want to get to full status. And if,
Yeah, yeah.
and if we can get there quicker, we're definitely going to explore that.
Love it.
Yeah.
All right, here's one other thing. We spent so much time talking about that. You mentioned, and I may put in for this job, I want to be the equipment manager. You're going to need an equipment. Is that for all sports? Is that the same person for all sports,
That
or?
would be also, yeah. So we're looking for we're
Wow.
interviewing right now for someone to lead all of our efforts. It is not a coincidence that this times up well with the Nike announcement.
Right.
This is a position that when I first got here, identified pretty quickly as a need. We had some other things that we had to prioritize. I mentioned, we added 2 academic advisors after the first year in
Mhm.
Division I. We added 3 full-time trainers on top of the trainers that we had during the second year, right at the start, before the start of the second year. But this was one that we had identified as well when I first got here, and saying, okay, this position has evolved so much across the country
Mhm.
that it's not, they ain't just doing laundry anymore. I can tell you that. I mean, this
Yeah.
has really become a critical health and safety position. And
Mhm.
in addition to that, it's become a little bit of a steward of the brand as well,
Mhm.
to ensure that we protect and promote the brand in the right way. And that becomes more important now that we're in Division I. And so, that's where I'm excited about this. I think when we've got, it's gonna be a great service to our coaches and our student athletes. It's the right time with the Nike onboarding and some of
Mhm.
the planning that's going on there. So, again, and honestly, with some of the candidates that we're looking at right now, every single one of them's got Division I experience. There's a guy we're going to talk to later today that's got NFL experience.
Nice.
So
It'll be fun. Boy, is that like the actual keeper of the swag, like campus wide, every sport,
very
and
important
making sure
role.
everybody's fit in the right protective gear that they are also provided for their sport.
Everybody tries to become friends with the head equipment manager. Let's put it
Yeah.
that way.
Heck
But
yeah.
but they've got to run a huge student staff, to do it well.
Mhm.
Their time is just everywhere. There's only one person that works more hours in the department. That's probably Avi, than this role.
Yep.
So, it's a critical role, but it's going to be, again, it continues to be part of how we prepare and position the university for Division I athletics. And again, it's not a coincidence that the way it times up with how we're doing things here. And so, so yeah, we're excited.
All right, man. Man, that's a lot. There's so much to unpack from those big meetings, though.
There is. And
And-
again, there's so much going on right now nationally. I think a little bit of some of the decision making on reclass too, it'd be remiss if you didn't have in the front of your mind, what's going on nationally, house case, how you reposition things relative to the settlement. But, again, like, we're excited to get there. We just want to make sure that we're doing everything in a fully informed manner that is in the best interest of the university. But
Okay.
we're working hard, and our teams are working hard, and I know we'll probably talk about track here soon, and talk about a team that is ready for to showcase some of those student athletes at a national championship. So we're doing everything we can to get them in a position to do that.
Okay. All right. So have you checked with any family or friends back in Maine, like in the last 24 hours?
Not in the last 24 hours.
Do you know if they have snow or stuff on the ground, or is that only in South Louisiana
It
and
might
Texas
only
at
be,
the
well,
moment?
those are the other Acadians, right? Like the ones that went
Yeah,
down
that's
the
right.
weekend, right? Yeah. So yeah, we'll see what happens to the schedule. I mean, again, maybe a little bit of some insight here, again, inside Lion Athletics, right? I mean, as we're talking here, there's still some discussion about what's going to happen with the game schedule this week, maybe some modifications to include our game, even though thankfully there's no snow here. Although there was a very light dusting on the windshield this morning when I
Oh,
when I
there
got
you
in the
go.
car. So we'll see. We'll see.
Man, well, I understand that Louisiana borrowed a couple of snowplows from Arkansas. Maybe we could get one as an escort from Oklahoma and take us wherever we need to go.
Maybe just one or two, huh?
Yeah. Well, 2 buses, 2 plows.
No.
All right, Jim, it's always a blast to do this, and it's so informative, especially on the other things. I mean, you can imagine that for some of the Lion faithful out there that, first the move to Division I, that was such a huge deal to begin with. And now they're talking about making it go faster. They don't know whether to cheer or go, oh no.
Yeah, well, here's the thing.
But when we know, we'll know.
Yeah, when we'll know, we'll know. That's for sure. I mean, we've been very methodical. We've tried to be very intentional throughout this process, and we're excited. We are. I mean, we've got a great plan. We're executing the plan, but yeah, we're excited about it. But to your point, very nuanced, very nuanced. And I think sometimes that nuance and detail gets lost in headlines and press releases that are very general in nature. And more than anything, we just want to make sure we're making the best decision for our student athletes in our university.
Sounds good to me, man. Let's line up and get out of here.
Let's do it.
Jim Curry, thank you so much for your time today. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for watching again. More Inside Lion Athletics. Do it again next week.